Welcome back to MKTG Mindset, Episode 3.
Great to be here.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the world of Super Bowl marketing. It's always huge, right? But we're focusing specifically on Super Bowl LV8 and looking at two beer giants, Coors and Bud Light.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how they approached it with, well, completely opposite strategies, polar opposites, really.
Exactly. And we're basing this on the articles and notes you, the listener, shared with us. So we're going to unpack these two very different game plans.
Right. We want to understand, what were their goals, what results did they actually get, and maybe most importantly, what are the key lessons here for, well, anyone in marketing?
Because it's not just about the commercials anymore, is it? The stuff everyone talks about.
Not at all. Like you highlighted in the materials, a lot of the action, the real impact can happen off screen.
Yeah, the brand activations, the experiences, how brands actually connect with people where they are. And these two, Coors and Bud Light, they really give us a fascinating contrast.
Okay, so let's set the stage. Coors first. Their strategy for Super Bowl LV8, it was all about physical presence, widespread engagement.
Yeah, they activated this campaign in a ton of places. The notes said over 190 venues across the country.
That's a massive footprint.
Yeah.
And the tactic itself was, well, pretty straightforward. Almost classic marketing, you could say.
A gift with purchase. Simple as that.
Right. You buy a Coors, probably Coors Light, during the game, and you get something tangible, NFL-themed stuff.
What was it? Helmets, trucker hats, jerseys, things like that.
Exactly. Things fans would actually want during the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
A clear value exchange. Buy this, get this cool thing, designed to drive immediate action right there in the bar or venue.
So their goal was pretty clear there, laser-focused almost.
Totally. Boost those in-venue activations.
Yeah.
Get more places pushing Coors, get people drinking it right then and there while watching the game. Capitalize on that captive audience and the excitement.
Okay, makes sense. Transactional, widespread. Got it. Now, Bud Light, completely different playbook, right?
Completely different. Instead of that wide net with a simple offer, they concentrated everything, poured their resources into one big, really curated experiential event.
And they did this in Vegas, even though the game wasn't in Vegas that year.
Yeah, Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Which, it always has buzz, right? Especially on a weekend like that.
Yeah.
The event was called the Bud Light Backyard Tour.
Backyard tour, okay. And this wasn't just handing out hats for beers.
No, far from it. This was about building an entire, immersive environment, a whole world.
A vibe, you might say. What did that involve?
Well, the notes mentioned big things. Live music, for instance, like Zach Bryan, Leon Bridges. Those are pretty popular artists.
Wow, okay. That's a draw in itself.
Definitely. Plus, you had all this stuff designed for sharing online, neon signs with the Bud Light logo, perfect for photos, a custom hat bar so you get something personalized, and, yeah, giveaways too, but they felt more like a part of the whole party, not the main reason for being there.
So Coors was about scale and the immediate transaction, getting the beer in hand with a bonus item. Bud Light was about creating a destination, a single, high-impact, memorable party.
Exactly. If Coors wanted volume across many places, Bud Light wanted to be the place. Generate memories, get people talking, generate that buzz.
And this really hits on that core difference, doesn't it? That fundamental marketing choice. Coors went for what you'd call transactional marketing.
Textbook transactional, very direct. Do this action, buy our product, and you get this immediate reward.
Creates urgency right there at the bar.
Exactly. Reduces the friction to buy, adds that little extra incentive. The main goal is driving sales volume then, right there. Quantifiable.
Whereas Bud Light, they were all in on experiential marketing.
Totally. Which is, less about that instant sale and much more about building an emotional connection, creating a positive feeling around the brand.
Building brand love, maybe.
Yeah, or association, loyalty. And hugely important now, creating moments people want to share. They weren't just selling beer. They were selling the experience of being at this cool Super Bowl weekend event.
Making Bud Light part of the story, part of the memory.
Right? Whether you were a massive football fan or just, soaking up the Vegas energy that weekend, it's about becoming part of their lifestyle, their narrative.
So it lays out that classic marketing question perfectly. Are you chasing the quick, measurable wins, the immediate sales lift like Coors seem to be, or are you playing more of a long game, building that deeper connection, shaping the brand image, becoming part of the culture like Bud Light?
And it's crucial, like the sources point out, not to just say one is better. They both have value. It completely depends on what the brand needs at that moment. What are its goals? Where is it in the market?
Right. Maybe if you're trying to grow fast, grab market share, those immediate conversions, that core strategy makes a lot of sense.
Sure does.
But if you're already, a huge name, maybe your focus shifts. It becomes about staying relevant, reinforcing loyalty, connecting on that lifestyle level, which sounds more like Bud Light's approach here.
Spot on. And that difference really shows up when you look at the results, or at least how they measured success, because winning looked very different for each of them.
Okay, let's talk results. Coors, with that widespread transactional push, they had some seriously solid numbers, right? The sources were pretty specific.
Oh, yeah, very quantifiable. For an in-venue campaign, the ROI seems massive.
Yeah.
They saw a 114% increase in venue activations.
Wow, 114%. So way more bars and places were actively running the Coors promotion.
Exactly. But then the consumption numbers, that's where it gets really eye-popping. A 92% increase in overall Coors consumption in those venues during the campaign.
92% across nearly 200 places. That's a lot of beer.
It really is. And they even mentioned a specific detail: over 105,000 schooners of Coors Light consumed, apparently a local record somewhere. That just hammers home the immediate purchase impact.
It wasn't just a little bump, it was a surge directly tied to that gift with purchase.
In comparing it year over year, the notes said a 157% jump compared to the previous Super Bowl. For a brand like Coors, seeing that kind of direct lift from one activation, that's a clear win on volume and partner engagement. They nailed their goal.
Okay, so Coors won on the volume scoreboard. Hard numbers. What about Bud Light? Their success wasn't about schooners sold at the party, was it?
No, different goal, different metrics. They didn't release direct sales figures from the backyard tour as far as the sources said, but they definitely scored on, cultural impact, generating buzz.
How so?
Well, obviously high foot traffic at the event itself. But the bigger win was how much it got shared online. That whole environment, the music, the photo ops, the custom hats, it was designed to be shared.
Instagrammable, basically.
Totally. People wanted to post about being there, tag Bud Light, show their friends and followers they were at this cool thing.
So Bud Light became part of the Super Bowl story, even for people not watching the game in a bar. You saw this awesome party happening in Vegas, and Bud Light was the host.
Exactly. The source material said it well. Bud Light didn't just sell a drink, they became a vibe. They sold the feeling, the social status of being there.
Which builds brand association with more than just football, right? It's music, lifestyle, being in the know.
Right. And that kind of cultural saturation, even if it's harder to put an immediate ROI number on it like Coors could, that can be incredibly valuable for long-term brand health, brand equity.
Okay, so this leads us to the lessons. What can marketers take away from this tale of two strategies?
Well, Coors really showed the enduring power of good old-fashioned merchandising when it's tied smartly to a live event.
Gift with purchase isn't dead, then.
Apparently not. Especially if the gift is relevant NFL gear during the Super Bowl and easy to get right where people are consuming, like in a bar, it still works. Especially maybe in sports marketing where fans love that limited edition stuff.
And Bud Light. What's the key takeaway there?
The value of genuine brand immersion. You don't always need to give something physical if the experience itself is compelling enough. If it's unique, shareable.
People will share it themselves.
Exactly. The experience becomes the reward. Yeah. And the attendees become your marketers, essentially. Sharing it online, tagging the brand. It leverages user-generated content, peer influence.
Yeah.
Creates that social currency.
So looking at them side by side, the big question for any marketer isn't just which is cheaper or which looks cooler. It's more fundamental.
Yeah, it's about asking, what stage is my brand actually in? And what is my specific goal right now? Be honest about that.
Right, because if you need growth now, if you need to move product and track it easily, maybe the Coors model, that widespread activation with a clear incentive, is the smarter play. The ROI is visible.
Makes sense.
But if you're already established, maybe the challenge is different. It's about staying connected, staying relevant, being more than just the product, building that lifestyle connection. And that's where the Bud Light experiential approach might be the right move, even if the metrics are softer initially.
So yeah, if we had to pick a winner based on the sources?
It depends on how you define winning, right?
Exactly. Coors clearly won on immediate sales volume, on venue activation lift. They set a volume goal and crushed it.
And Bud Light won on cultural relevance, on buzz, on building that emotional connection. They aimed to create a memorable lifestyle moment, and they did.
So the main takeaway, really, from these sources is that there's no single magic bullet for big event marketing. Both strategies were valid. Both were successful for what they aimed to achieve.
It really hammers home how vital it is to know your objective, know your brand's current position before you even think about tactics.
Certainly.
So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. When you're planning your next big campaign, ask yourself that question these two brands force us to consider.
Is this something people will just buy? Or is this something they'll truly remember?
Food for thought.
Thank you for listening.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next episode.